Hello, and welcome to the Love Life, Live Life Fitness podcast, the premier podcast where we talk about topics ranging from health and fitness, performance and sport, and wellness and rehabilitation. We tie these topics together to understand their impact on our daily lives and our journey to be the best version of ourselves. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we would like to welcome Stine. Stine, thank you for coming on, and would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Stine Emrick. I am currently an assistant strength and conditioning coach at Utah State University for football. I've been out here for about a year and a half, loving what I do. I am originally from Colorado. I grew up playing soccer at a pretty high club level, knowing that I wanted to go and pursue a collegiate soccer career. And in that experience, found that strength and conditioning was also something that I wanted to do. Started working with a strength and conditioning coach sometime early in high school and recognized that I wasn't necessarily always the best soccer player from a technical standpoint, but I was successful because I was athletic and could be more athletic based on working with a strength and conditioning coach. And that was something that really interested me. And I wanted to be able to pursue that, to be able to do that for other people as well. And so I went and played soccer at Louisiana Tech University. And in that process, I was really, really fortunate and unfortunate in that I was able to start my strength and conditioning journey early due to experiencing injuries. And so spent some time at a private sector facility in Golden, Colorado, where I am from. Realized very quickly that I didn't want to work with Gen Pop and looked at what it looked like to start pursuing experience and career in collegiate strength and conditioning. And so between my junior and senior year of college, I spent some time at Colorado State University with Joey Gracio and his staff up there with the football team. And then went back to Louisiana Tech and spent the entire year working with Kurt Hester and his staff with the football team down there. And those two experiences really shaped the way that I operate as a strength and conditioning coach today. Gave me a great foundation for being able to execute and interact and learn and do all of those things as I continued on in my career. After that, I was a graduate assistant at Northern Arizona University, but very, very shortly after I was hired on as a GA, was hired full time, and I ended up spending a total of 4 years down there, which is pretty unique early in a career to spend that amount of time somewhere. But allowed me to, again, really grow and figure out my philosophy and what I wanted to do from a coaching standpoint because I did have my own teams. I wasn't just working with football. And that gave me a great foundation for really being able to explore different things and figure out the things that I wanted to actually implement and execute. And then from there, went to the Tulsa University, where I spent 9 months. I was just with football over there before coming out here to Utah State. And like I said, I've been here for about a year and a half now.
Awesome. That is really, really cool to see that you've been all the way from, being in Colorado all the way to Louisiana, Oklahoma. I think that's a unique experience. And the people that you mentioned, those are definitely, you could say, legends and definitely in their spaces, because learning from those people coming out, I think that's a great way to get ahead in terms of your career and development. I would say, would you mind kind of just telling us a little bit more about your experiences, both in terms of Colorado State as well as Louisiana Tech?
Yeah, no, and those were, like I said, really foundational to how I operate as a coach now. Kind of like you said, those guys that I was able to learn under are definitely legends in this field, and um, that being my first experience of collegiate strength and conditioning, specifically on the football side, I had my eyes open to, that is pretty unique. Like, not everybody operates like those two men operate. And it led me then to operate in a different way than I would say the majority of this field, in that, a lot of people are just pursuing like doing hard things and whatnot. And by no means is there not a space for that. And that's the space that I'm in now. But also being able to incorporate, new research and executing at a really high level from a performance standpoint and doing some things that are a little bit more unconventional and experimentational. But then also in that same vein, those two coaches have been very, very intense, but in a way that is really effective because of the kinds of relationships that they're able to build. And that was something that was really cool to see, is that these guys have a really, really high standard and they hold their athletes to a really high standard, but they love those guys a ton. And that's what allows them to have those high expectations and standards. And that was really foundational for me in the way that I approach my coaching. And yeah, I'm really fortunate and blessed to have been able to be influenced by those coaches. And even still today, like the way that I coach, the way that I program is very, very influenced by those two coaches.
That's awesome. And that's really cool to hear that, how, learning about that, developing those relationships and seeing how they kind of interacted with their athletes. That's kind of how you kind of took that upon yourself to, build that into your own career. With that being said, how would you say, being a collegiate athlete, how would you say building relationships, you obviously have teammates, coaches, other staff members, and even just friends outside of the game that you communicated with. How would you say building relationships in the sport of soccer, how would you say that translated to you now being on the football side?
Yeah. I think that there is the universal like collegiate athlete experience. And although I never obviously played football, from a time commitment standpoint, from the toll that it takes on your body, all of that kind of stuff, I can relate pretty directly to these guys. I think from a time commitment standpoint, it's pretty similar in that, in collegiate soccer, we're also in camp during August. We're doing 2 days, we're doing all that kind of stuff. So I can relate to the demands that are placed on these guys when we are in camp and, it's day 15 and they're exhausted and all of that. It's like, yeah, I know I've been there, but once you see through the other side, then it's great. One thing too that I think is pretty unique is right now I'm responsible for all of our like post-surgical guys are RTP guys. And I get to spend a lot of time with them, and having my own RTP experience and experiencing some pretty significant injuries, specifically in college, I feel like I can relate to those guys in a really different way. That helps them and me to be able to continue to move forward in the things that we're doing and help them to pursue just recovery and improvement and all of that. And I think that my experience personally gave me the ability to communicate with those guys in a little bit different way, like not only just in the coaching aspect, but just in the relationship development aspect of, hey, I can relate to y'all, like you can be real with me, I know what it is to go through this and it's not easy sometimes. But to give them a space to be able to be open and vulnerable because I've been there too. And it's not a foreign idea or concept to me. um, has been awesome.
It's really cool. And that being said, having that experience of going through the return to play process and doing that now, how would you say on a day-to-day basis, does that like mainly encompass your most of your roles and responsibilities, or is there many other tasks that you have in addition to working with the athletes or on the return to play?
Yeah, all other tasks too, obviously on the floor every single day. Coaching those guys up, that's something that I'm really passionate about. I would say that I'm a pretty technical coach, so I love being on the floor or on the field, whatever that may be, and coaching those guys up from a technical aspect. Um, but then I'm responsible for all of our speed development stuff, which I'm pretty passionate about as well, and figuring out creative and new ways to be able to implement those things specifically with this team, and the needs of this team, just because the way that we play and the way that we practice is a little bit different and unique. But then also in that, I've kind of taken on the role of being able to have conversations from a nutritional standpoint with these guys as well. So I feel like I've put on a lot of different hats of, yes, I am that like immediate post surgical return to play person. I'm also, I'll say, our nutritionist. I don't have my RD, so I can say that I'm just a nutritionist. I have certifications in that. But then obviously also being on the floor and coaching at the same time. But being able to wear all of those different hats, I feel like gives me just more access to being able to help these guys.
Ooh, that's really cool. And being versatile like that, I know that's always nice because I'm sure that helps build a relationship with those guys too. They're like, "Hey, what's up? Can you tell me a little bit more about something nutrition related?" If they're working on their diet or something, and then it's always cool to see, "Oh man, she's out here coaching me up," and then like she's being discreet and technical about it. A lot of guys they appreciate that, especially as they're developing. So, I mean, that's great on you for doing that. That's really cool. Um, right now, in your process of working at the collegiate level and coaching these guys, what would you say the biggest factors were, things that help you get to your point in addition to those experiences? Would you say having like a certain degrees that you may have, or anything that you feel would be beneficial for someone who may be trying to work into the space that you're at?
Yeah, I think my degree definitely gave me a foundation, for sure, and that because I knew what I wanted to do, I was able to be more intentional with the way that I was studying and retain the information that was going to be really important and pertinent to what I was doing from a career standpoint. But then I think the biggest thing was just being willing to go and learn from people, to be able to go and say, okay, hey, I'm going to move to Fort Collins, Colorado, and spend these 8 weeks not being paid to learn from really, really knowledgeable people. But then also even my experience at Louisiana Tech, where I was fully committed to that. I treated that like a full-time job. And I think just being able to have those experiences, but being intentional also to ask questions and be like a sponge to want to gain knowledge, was really, really valuable. And I would say that that's my biggest advice for people who are trying to get into this space is like, be willing to do the things that kind of suck. Like be willing to go and do an internship and be really attentive to detail, but also in that same vein, be willing to ask questions and not be afraid of using your resources that are around you. Because if you're in a place where people have been in the collegiate space for a while, they're probably pretty knowledgeable, and you don't get exposure to that all the time. And so my biggest thing would be take advantage of those. First of all, go into those experiences for sure. Take advantage of the resources that you have around you in terms of asking questions, and then go from there. And if you're really about it, then you're going to dive headfirst into it.
That's really good advice. I think that's really cool that you took that upon yourself to really, go into these spaces and, utilize it to the maximum. And I think that's such a good thing. And to that point, you've done internships. Would you mind speaking a little bit more upon the process of either getting into a graduate assistantship, as well as like what your experience was like as a graduate assistant?
Yeah. Um, I, at the time, it was kind of a interesting time because I was finishing up my undergrad like right when COVID was starting. I literally graduated from Louisiana Tech like 7 days before the world shut down. We were on quarter, so it was like nobody knew it was going to happen. And at that time, I was applying to pretty much everything. But I knew that I wanted to be in football in some way, shape, or form. But like just graduate assistants for football pretty much don't exist. And so I knew that I needed to go and do something that was going to be football and something, which is one of the best things that I could have done. And so, this industry too is very much based on relationships. And I was really fortunate in that Coach Hester had a good relationship with the head coach that was at Northern Arizona at the time. And so in addition to application and going through the application process for any sort of graduate assistantship, I was really lucky to have somebody in my corner who was also reaching out for me. And I was really lucky to be able to have a choice of a few different places to be able to go. But NAU kind of suited me the best because I knew that I was going to be able to be really involved in football, but also have my own teams that were actually pretty large teams. My main teams that I worked down there with were women's soccer and women's basketball, and so that gave me the opportunity and the ability to be really creative, and figure out what I want to do from a programming standpoint. But to go back to the whole application process, a lot of it was putting together a portfolio and relying on the knowledge that I had been given from those two experiences that I had had at both Colorado State and at Louisiana Tech, and being able to also lean on the network that I had created as well. And I would say that that's true in just about any position that you're applying for in this field. Is those relationships really matter, and your network really matters, but then also being able to rely on your knowledge and what you've learned and what you've gained, in each of the places that you've been is really beneficial.
Awesome, awesome. I think that's really well said. Like trying to, gain that information and relying on your network and people you know, because again, like you said, it's a it's a close knit relationship type of field, and I think when you show that, like you put in the work and you show that you care about trying to learn, I think that goes miles ahead because you're setting yourself up to either help others or others helping you. So I think that's awesome. That's really cool. Right now in your life overall, and I know you're working in sports, how would you say fitness has influenced your life?
Yeah, it's been a part of my life, literally my entire life. Grew up in Colorado. My dad actually was a professional skier when before I was born, but then as I was growing up, like that was just something that was always present of like we're going to pursue something active in any way, shape, or form that's going to be. And a lot of those things have been outdoors things, just being where I grew up in, and also my dad again being a professional skier. But the pursuit of just like a healthy lifestyle has been super present my entire life. My parents never really like pushed me to like necessarily go and be super successful in any one given sport. It was just, hey, we're going to do this and it's going to be because we want to live an active lifestyle. And I just happened to be successful enough to be able to go and get a collegiate soccer scholarship. But then even through that, a lot of the way that I've kind of approached coaching, has been with the lens or through the lens of like celebrating what your body can do, and being a fit person just in general like makes life way easier, whether you are competing in sports or just going outside and going for a walk or whatever it may be. And so that has kind of shaped the way that I've lived. Of I want to be able to go and live a life that is functional, go and live a life where it's easy to go out for a walk, it's easy to go and enjoy nature, it's easy to go and do the things that I want to do and like feel good in my body while doing it. And that's definitely how fitness has influenced my life. And I think a lot of that it has also been due to recognizing what it feels like to be injured or not be able to do the things that you want your body to do. And so on the other side of that, being able to then celebrate what your body can do, and continue to pursue feeling great while loving your life.
That's really well said. Being able to, just be able to move, and sometimes the simplest task, the functional task that you have to do daily, it's it's really eye opening because when you don't have that ability anymore, it's kind of makes you think like, man, I really want to do something so simple, but trying to take advantage of that and take care of yourself, it pays dividends like later in life for your own body and mental health, physical health. Like I think it really can impact you, and I think that's really cool with your experience. All the way from having a dad being a professional skier to now helping athletes hopefully pursue professional careers eventually. I think it always comes like full circle, but also on a daily basis, trying to take care of yourself because trying to take care of yourself and take care of others, something's going to have to, something's going to keep building on itself in the sense that, if you're taking care of yourself, it kind of just translates to others and others because they can see that, oh, this person cares enough about themselves that one, they care about me in a selfless way, but they care about themselves. So I should maybe take a little bit of advice from this person. So I think that's really cool. That's awesome. I just have a couple more questions for you. I was going to say, to the point of like loving your life, what does it mean to you to love your life and live your life?
Yeah, I think that's a awesome question. I think oftentimes like we lose sight of that. I think that a lot of times people get so engrossed in like what they're doing from a career standpoint that they forget that they're a multifaceted person and they have other things to do. And so for me, like loving my life and living my life is being able to recognize every part of me. The part that is a strength coach, but the part that also loves being outside, the part that's a daughter, the part that's a believer in Jesus, like all of those different things. And being able to maximize each of those things while not losing sight of the other parts is what it looks like for me to like love my life, but also live my life. In that I'm not just here all day. Sure, I love what I do, absolutely love what I do, but I also know that I can go out and love the other things that I do in my life as well. And making sure that I'm not losing sight of those things or just being finding my identity in just being a strength coach or whatever that may look like. And so recognizing that I am multifaceted and being able to also like lean into those other things um, is what that looks like for me.
That's really cool because I think multifacetedness it's such a it's such an underrated and valued thing because, you know, like you said, understanding that, your identity isn't only in being a collegiate strength coach, but it's all those other things that you mentioned. And I think, it always starts with just something being yourself for one. And I think obviously depending on others' faith-based beliefs, I would say that definitely that plays a big role in many people's lives. So I think that's really cool. I'm same way. I mean, I'm in different ways. I have different hats I got to fulfill in different ways, but I always try to come back to like what grounds me, my identity. And for me, same thing as you were saying, my identity is with Jesus Christ. And I know that um, whoever people may follow or believe, you know, understanding that, you're loved at the end of the day by someone and hopefully many people, but, you know, you're loved by someone as well as you should love yourself enough to know that you're valuable. And I think everything that you say, even though in different ways people might have different perceptions of you or things you do, you're valued. And I think that that just speaks volumes. So I think that's how everything that you said is wonderful. It's really cool. Lastly, big thing, because I know everybody is probably waiting on this and they probably just want me to stop talking, just say this. But if people are interested in connecting with you, learning from you, seeing what you're up to, and trying to be like you, where would you say is the best place that people can find you?
Yeah, I'm Stina_Emrick on both Instagram and Twitter. I would say that I'm a lot more active on Instagram than I am on Twitter. But then also like I am free for, hopping on phone calls whenever anybody wants to. I actually also am our intern coordinator here as well. And one of my big passions is to develop young strength coaches. And so, like I said, super available for, any sort of phone call at any point in time. Shoot me an email. My email is stina.emrick@usu.edu. Always open for answering questions and anything that I can do to help, especially young strength coaches in the field or female strength coaches in the field, whatever that may be, because that's something that I also am passionate about as well. So, yeah, it's been a blessing to be able to influence not only the athletes that I'm around, but also other people in this field. So,
Thank you. And I hope people reach out to you. Stina, you're amazing. This whole conversation has been amazing, and you're a blessing. So thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, take care, okay? Thank you for listening to today's episode. I also want to thank our wonderful guests for coming on today. For more content, you can find us on Instagram at Love Life, Live Life Fitness. Stay tuned for our next episode, and as always, love your life and live your life.